Alright, we have here my completed outlined and detailed picture of Brilliant from my sketch. And I did figure out the selecting multiple nodes. It's called a transform tool. For example, let me zoom in here. If I want to edit the nodes in maybe two of these fingers together, let's say all the fingers. Let's say that the fingers are a little short for what I want. So I'll select the fingers and I'll select the hoof nails. Now I can edit. I can adjust these all at once together. Or what I can do is with the node tool selected, I now have individual nodes that I can manipulate. And then up here, you have the option of show transform handles for selected nodes. You click that, and it should, once I select these nodes, yes, I've got these handles where I can scale them just as we did with the object selected, or if you click on one of the nodes, it'll turn to a rotate box so you can rotate the nodes independently. Now I'm not going to mess with that at this point. I probably will in a moment. What I do when I get this picture, what I'm going to do first of all, I'm going to make everything white. So it's not this shade of blue. So I'll select everything on my outline layer, and I'll change the fill color to solid white, which is 255 value for red, green, and blue. And I'm going to remove my sketch layer, so all I have now is just my picture that I've done. Now select everything, and I will change the opacity. Actually, I don't need to select everything. I'll just change my opacity to 100%. So now the outlines should look full. So there is pretty much a vectorized version of Brilliant. There's still a little bit of work to do, though, because it's easier to manipulate vector graphics, in my opinion, than it is to manipulate paper, what's drawn on paper. I'll go ahead and make these dark again. They don't have to be true color. They just have to be about the shade that I would expect them to be, just so that I can see, kind of get a feel. It looks a little more natural that way. Something that I always do is I will flip the image. So if you select everything, box select, it'll select everything on both layers. Then I'll do object, flip horizontal. And when the object is flipped, I actually see things that I didn't see before. Just because if your mind is used to looking at something one way, it's always used to seeing certain kind of contours or shapes on a line. You go the other way, and then all of a sudden things look off. What looks off to me is he looks a little elongated up here on this side. So I'll select everything up here, and I'll squish him in somewhat. Now that didn't get my torso, so I'll hit Control Z, and now I'll shift select the torso, bring it in. There, that looks better. This will need to be tweaked, but I can fix that. The arm almost looks a little too long, I think, also. So I'll select the components of the arm, and I'll bring it, whoops, select the components of the arm, and I'll bring it in just a little bit. Now you'll see things will need to be retweaked. This cover piece needs to be moved again. Also, I don't like this line. We're seeing it from this side. And then I did notice that I'm missing a cover piece here on my outline layer for this particular line. I will fill that white with no stroke. Page down. And that looks better, I think. This looks a little off to me. You really do see things that you didn't see before when you flip an image. I highly recommend it. Now this little outcropping is bugging me more than it used to. So I'll just remove it entirely. Get rid of that one too, I guess. even though I know I said sometimes they're alright. The hands could be resized. So I will have these selected, and now I'll grab these nodes and I will scale them out this way. Make the hand bigger at that point. The wrist needs to be readjusted here. The fingers look a little too rigid, I suppose. Hands are tricky. What I'll often do is actually take a picture of my hands in the orientation that I want to see the character's hand in, and I will use that as a template. Instead of drawing over a sketch layer, I'll just draw over a photograph layer. And typically what I'll find is once I swap everything, I flip everything back to the original orientation, I'll find that things actually look better. Even though I didn't notice that they looked off before, they will look even more on, if that makes sense. Okay, so the hands, the fingers need to come out a little more, I think. They need to have a slight bend. I'll try that. So I want to make sure each one has some nodes in the middle. So I'll add some nodes to the middle of the fingers, if there aren't any. Alright, now with all the fingers selected, I'll select these middle nodes, shift-click to select multiple, and then I'll just bring them out this way a little more. That didn't work quite as well as I had hoped. I'll just tweak it kind of a little bit better here. Okay, that finger is going to be under this finger, so there's no point in having that above that. And this should go down also, page down, of course not below the torso. Okay. I guess that's part of the problem I'm running into. My fingers here are not on the correct, they're not above where they need to be. And this is usually how editing hands goes for me. It's just kind of trial and error and trying to make them look good. That is if I don't have a good reference. That is if I'm not using my photographs. Now the reason it looks unnatural too is because the fingers are so close together. They're just touching each other, which is not a very relaxed pose. So what I've done is I've selected the hoof nail, the finger, and then just some of the detail on the knuckle there. And then I've moved my pivot point up to where the finger connects so I can just kind of swing it out a little bit. I'll do the same thing here. You click on one of them, and then you've got a rotate, and then you can pivot based on a point. And I'll fan this one out a little bit and see how that looks. I think that looks a little more natural. Maybe not entirely natural, but a little more. The thumb needs to be a little wider, come out further. Okay, make this hoof nail a little more broad. Not so much that it just looks like a gross long fingernail or anything, though. It's kind of a balance that has to be found. And I think I'm not matching that balance. Okay, let's try something more like that. Alright, that'll work, I suppose. Alright, this bump here looks unnatural, so I'll smooth it out. It just needs to be a hint of wrist. It doesn't need to be anything that draws any kind of attention. Yeah, now I think I need a detail line here on this bicep. See what that looks like. Control click, back out. I did leave out the eyebrow, the eyelid. I don't typically draw eyebrows. Sometimes I can do it with shading, but I don't normally do it just as it is. See, that should work for an eyelid. I don't know, eyebrows on horses, sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. Okay, there's the eyelid. Now his lower jaw here looks off, whereas before it looked perfectly fine, to me anyways. Then swapping the perspective, then I really see where things are not lining up like I thought they were. It looks a little too elongated, I think. Perhaps not. What I'll do is I will select these here, and I will take these and just slide them over just slightly. See if that's what I want to do or not. So that's before, and then undo, and after. That'll work. And I'll probably take what I've got here and then raise it in and out just a little bit. Let's make this a little more square. We'll add to the illusion that the mouth is broader. Yeah. And I might hook this up just a little bit. Having kind of a square shape on the jaw looks more masculine. Having more of a rounded shape looks more feminine. Okay. Actually, I'm going to move the mouth up a little bit more. The further back it comes, the more it's a grin, the more pleasant the expression looks. And I want that a little more broad too, actually, so I will broaden that out. Yeah, like so. I might add a detail line here to see how that looks, because I did have that in my original sketch, because it is supposed to be kind of the other side of the nostril. I don't know if that's going to work or not. It'll work if it's curved outward, I think. Okay. That's acceptable, I think. And now I'll bring this up and hit save. The next part will be coloring. This ear looks a touch long, I think. The shape is a little off. Still finding that shape. Try that. Yeah, I like that. Okay. Now the legs look fair. They could use a little work. I'm going to go ahead and stop the video at this point, but I'll pick right back up. Mainly because if I record too long, the file gets too large, and after it gets to a certain point, then it crashes.